What's up, passionate DJs? Today we're doing a deep dive into the Denon LC6000. Now, this is a single deck DJ controller that's meant to be used either to take control of a single deck in a Denon PRIME setup or a software setup such as Serato Virtual DJ. So you might consider this the DJ controller version of the SC6000. It's basically got the same parts as far as the jog wheel, the buttons, all that stuff is going to be identical to the flagship player. It just doesn't have the screen and the computing power. So this is a straight up DJ controller that really offers a lot of value and a lot of versatility. So let's take a look at this thing and see what it has to offer. LC6000 is a device that's rather simple on the surface, but when you start to dig a little bit deeper, you begin to truly understand how versatile a device that it really is. So I spent some time trying to think of the best way to describe it, but I couldn't really choose, so I'll leave it up to you. You could call it a single-deck modular DJ controller, or perhaps a dedicated secondary layer controller. Or you could think of it as an SC6000 without the screen and CPU. Or maybe you could just think of it as an unmotorized Rain 12. So let's just say there are a number of ways that you can use the LC6000, so we're going to explore several of those today. In simple terms, it's a DJ controller that can be used either to control decks in a Denon PRIME setup or within your favorite DJ software. Unless your favorite DJ software is Traktor, but I digress. Yes, it's true, while there have been rumors of Traktor support, as of the making of this video, that hasn't been made a reality. However, if you're a user of Serato Virtual DJ or Algorithm's DJ Pro, you're in luck. So, a single LC6000 offers full control over a single deck, or a layer if you will, and you basically get to decide how it fits in your setup. Unlike all-in-one DJ controllers or standalone DJ systems like the Denon PRIME 4, the LC is a modular DJ controller. It's meant to be one piece of a larger puzzle. So let's take that PRIME 4 as an example. As of engine version 2.1, you can add one or two LC6000s to either side, and then use them to control decks 3 and 4. All it takes is one USB cable connecting each player straight to the controller, and you're all set. You don't need extra screens when you already have a lovely display on the PRIME 4, capable of showing 4 decks worth of information, so why pay for them? What we actually want is tactile control over these decks, without having to share inputs with multiple layers. So let's take a quick look over the top of the LC6000, do a quick overview of its layout, and then talk about several more examples of what you might want to use one of these for. Now, I love making these hardware videos for you passionate DJs, and the reason that I've been able to make more of them lately is thanks to our preferred hardware provider, the DJ Hookup. Now, they loaned us today's featured hardware so that I could put my grubby hands on it and share my thoughts with all of you. Now, I always say to get in the chat bar and mention Passionate DJ over at their website. Now, this isn't because I get any kind of payment or kickback, I don't, but rather because I want them to know that these videos are giving them value. So if our name keeps coming up, they're going to want to keep sending us cool gear to make videos with, and that's a pretty decent arrangement for us, especially because it keeps us fully separated from the manufacturers and helps prevent bias. But that's not the only reason you should buy your LC6000s from the DJ Hookup. They offer a best price guarantee, free shipping straight to your door, 90-day returns, financing options, and on top of all that, they are the highest rated DJ equipment dealer online, with over 6,000 verified customer reviews since 2010. So head on over there, get in that chat bar, and say something like, "Hey, I love your videos with Passionate DJ. I'd like to know more about the LC6000, and I promise they'll take good care of you." Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and power on the LC6000, and if I can find the button back here, and as you'll see, it'll light up and everything just like a regular Denon player, and as it does that, it kind of changes the screen over here. It pops up on the full-size Denon player. I've got a 5000 over here, and you can see it popped up to show that there are 2 decks here now. So anything that we do over here is now going to be displayed over here. So we're going to come down to the actual LC5000 player here, or 6000, or whatever you have. We're going to select it. We're going to go ahead and load our user profile, and then we'll see our music, we'll see our logo if we've got one, and it'll pop up on the other screen as well. And now basically, since this is plugged into the USB port of this device, this is going to control all the dual layer functions over here. So anything we do over here, we'll be able to see what's happening over here. So for example, if we take this browse knob and we start scrolling, right, then we could also scroll from over here, but if we click this knob in, it's going to load it into this deck. If we click this knob in, it's going to load it into this deck. So see, it loads it into the bottom, which is deck B, or layer B. And so now, using this jog wheel, we can control that deck. Now if we come back over here, we want to load a deck into this player. We can do the same thing over here. And now we have dual layer control of one player using both of these devices. Now, speaking to the general layout and build quality, I mean, you pretty much know what to expect because this is just like an LC6000 in all those ways. So it's got the same kind of brushed top plate here. It's got that same kind of heavy-duty construction. Of course, with some of the pieces coming out, you know, it doesn't have any kind of CPU or any of that stuff in it, so it would be lighter, but it's still got some, you know, weight to it. I'm sure they weight it down a little bit so that it helps with stability. It's got the same jog wheel as the LC6000, so it feels wonderful, as you would expect. Sorry, I've already gotten some fingerprints on there. You can use this to do needle drop. If you put your finger here anywhere on the needle drop, it will drop you to that section in the track. Of course, you want to make sure that your deck is stopped, because if it's playing, it's just going to give you a warning like this. Or at least it should if you have that warning enabled, which you should, because you don't want to be able to just skip around like that. Here at the top right is that browse knob that we said. You can go back and forward tracks here. You can double tap that to load instant doubles. Here you can adjust if you want to have a heavy or light tension on the jog wheels. So this feels, again, just like the LC6000. If you've got it all the way on light, it spins a little more freely. If you turn it to the right, it doesn't move very much at all. It's actually quite heavy. Here you can enable your vinyl emulation mode, your sync and master settings, your key lock, and your nice long throw, nice smooth pitch fader here. Feels like the normal player. This is your deck select and your slip mode. It's a combined function here. And then all your hotkey loops, roll slicer, all these functions here work the same way that they do in either a Prime setup or in a Serato setup. Of course, up here you've got your looping functions. You can enable an auto loop here. If you click that button in, it'll set a loop. You can twist that knob to adjust the size of the loop, or you could manually set the loop in and out points right there. Here's your sensor button in case you need to reverse part of the track. Here you can skip forward and backward tracks and your beat jump. Again, all this stuff is going to be very familiar if you've used any of the Denon stuff. Not much to report here on the front of the device. This is normally where you would plug in a USB or SD card, but of course this player doesn't have that, so we'll just take a quick look around to the back. And once again, as you can see, not much to see back here, just your power adapter port and your USB port. Pretty simple. Once again, this is just a basic DJ controller at its heart, so there's not too much to worry about fussing with back here. So let's talk about example uses and setups. Of course, I just showed you how you can use an LC6000 as a layer controller alongside a set of LC5000 or 6000 players. You could use it with a pair, or you could combine it with one of the full-size players to complete your setup. And technically, you only need one screen and one CPU for dual deck play in a Denon setup, so this is a perfectly functional setup that saves money over a pair of multiplayers. Now, earlier in the video, we talked about how you could use the LC6000 to expand control of your Prime 4, which makes a huge amount of sense, especially for home use. But let's not forget that these are just DJ controllers, and they're capable of controlling your DJ software. So, for example, you could have a setup that looks like this: 2 decks controlled solely by the LCs and a Serato-enabled mixer. Or go all out with 4 decks. Why not? If you're using Serato anyways, perhaps you don't want to pay for what essentially amounts to 4 computers with some LC6000s. You just want some nice chunky jog wheels and some sensible controls. The great thing about modular controllers is their modularity. So perhaps you already have a 4-channel controller that you like, such as the, Pioneer DDJ1000 or the newer FLX6, and you just like to be able to put hands on decks 3 and 4. This allows you to do that while leaving the computing and the displaying duties up to your laptop. Now, the LC6000 is also compatible with Virtual DJ and Algorithm's DJ Pro. That second one's interesting because they offer a mobile version, which begs the question, can you connect the LC6000s to an iPad or iPhone and use them to DJ? And the answer is yes, you absolutely can. Now, this is the beauty of the Algorithm software and the fact that they have a mobile port of it. Now, you can truly use the LCs in any way that you want, including by connecting it to a mobile device. So, considering how versatile this thing is, I wanted to run a couple of experiments. So first, since they recently added support for the Prime 4 standalone system, I wondered if maybe it might work with the Prime Go. So I plugged it in, connected the LC6000 to its single USB port there on the back, waited for it to power up, and, well, unfortunately it doesn't seem to work. And as you can see here, you can't scrub through tracks, you can't browse, it's just completely unresponsive. This probably wouldn't be a typical use case for one of these, but it was worth a shot. So similarly, I thought I might try connecting it to a Numark Mixstream Pro, which is the only non-Denon Engine OS standalone. Now this would have been ideal because, as you can see, it actually has 2 USB ports back here on the back, so this means that you could connect and power 2 LC6000s. But unfortunately, once again, as you can see here, no response from the Numark. And if you think about it, this sort of makes sense. After all, these are 2-channel devices which already have jog wheels, so it's like, what are you controlling? But I suppose in the case of the Prime Go, it would be nice to have access to those big, chunky SC6000 style jog wheels when you're playing at home. Maybe something we could look for in a future update, who knows? Engine OS is always surprising us. Now, I also tested whether it would work with a powered USB hub, and yes, of course, it does fine here, as that's basically what you're doing when you connect to one of these players. I even tested it with a non-powered hub, and that worked fine too. I was even able to connect the mixer audio through the same hub and charge my Nintendo Switch, and surprisingly, the LC6000 just kept going. Now, I really don't recommend pushing it this way. If you have a really complex setup full of USB components, you probably should power either the hub, the device, or both. Now, the LC6000 ships with a power adapter in case you do need it, particularly for that case where you're using it with a mobile device. You don't really want to rely on your iPhone to power itself and this controller. So yes, this is an extremely flexible device, but I do have one complaint, and that's the lack of Traktor support. I keep hoping for this to arrive, but for the moment, I'll just have to keep hoping. Now, if this changes, I'll make a video about it, but for now, I'll just have to dream about how lovely it would be to put it alongside my Control S8, and how well it would mesh with those big old SC6000 jog wheels. Now, normally this is the point in the video where we determine who this piece of hardware is for, but as you can see, it's for just about any DJ. It can be worked into any setup where you need hands-on control of a deck. It's a single-deck modular DJ controller at its core. How and where you use it is kind of up to you. This isn't the first time a device like this has been created, and indeed the Rain 12 isn't that much different, it's just the turntable version of this. But if you're not a scratch DJ, or that turntable style of cueing isn't really your jam, this might be more up your alley. So there you have it, folks. That is the LC6000. I hope that you see why I think this is such a versatile device, why so many DJs will find it to be so handy, such a nice thing to add to their setup, because it can use it for so many different things and different scenarios. So for instance, you might not know a whole bunch of DJs that use an Engine OS powered setup, that maintain an engine library, use a Denon PRIME setup, but you probably do if you know a few DJs know a few that use Serato, and these can act as Serato controllers. So that's just one example of a way that you could get a lot more use out of these than just using them one way. So I think there's a lot of reasons that DJs are going to want these, and I think that the fact that Denon's offering a single deck controller like this, but it offers the full-size experience as far as the jog wheel and all that stuff. Everything is the premium experience that you expect from the rest of the Prime setup, but you don't need to pay for all the extra parts. You can save about half the cost. I think that's a pretty great proposition. So if you think that this is right for you, once again, head on over to the DJ Hookup, order yours today, and no matter if you're controlling layer A or layer B, remember to keep on spinning.